Under the present administration, the United States have shown commitment to the fight against insurgency through equipment and training. However, a travel advice was issued to U.S. citizens to avoid 20 states in Nigeria. On this week's edition of the program, we take a look at the relationship between Nigeria and the United States. Hello there, thank you for joining me on the program this week. I'm Gloria Umezuki. The relation between Nigeria and the United States have gone way back over the years. It has assumed several dimensions, including the establishment of a U.S.-Nigeria binational commission. In our interview this week, we'll be looking at efforts by the U.S. government to support Nigeria in the various sectors, including security. But up ahead, the United States government is urging the federal government to increase the funding for agriculture as the government looks at diversifying the economy. Take a listen.
For technology-savvy customers,
Carving out a sustainable future in agriculture is the kernel of discussion here with the Minister of Agriculture and state representatives at the United States Embassy in Nigeria. It has become a major concern locally and internationally. The U.S. government is now seeking to intensify partnership with the private sector to accelerate production and expand the market, but there is a challenge.
The real issue is capital, because without capital you can't access the seeds, you can't access the fertilizers, and you can't access the knowledge that you need to boost productivity. And on all three of those, when we see young people coming in, they're not just bringing ideas, they're also bringing capital. Because as capital begins to see that they can get a return on investment.
The Minister of Agriculture, however, brings cheering news. Before the end of the year, the federal government will launch an agriculture fund to improve investment.
We're trying to reform the Bank of Agriculture to give cheaper credit. I'm bargaining for 5% credit of agri-credit to farmers. We're organizing farmers to form cooperatives, and so the cooperatives can become the borrowers. If we can't feed this country well, there just can't be peace.
The United States made it clear that global food security depends on Nigerian farmers, and so through a Feed the Future initiative, the U.S. government seeks to assist the sector to become economically productive. I had a conversation with the Chargé d'Affaires of United States Embassy in light of the travel advisory issued to her citizens living or traveling to Nigeria. Ambassador Tibonage, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be back in Nigeria.
All right. The U.S. recently issued a travel advice to her citizens in Nigeria to avoid about 20 states.
Right.
Now, do you still think Nigeria is unsafe in spite of the efforts the government is putting to fight terrorism?
The interesting thing is Nigeria is a huge country, so different parts of Nigeria carry different risk. I would compare it to a country like Mexico, right next to the United States. Some parts of it are safe as any part of the United States. Some parts of it are not safe. That's the whole purpose of our travel advisories. In countries that are inherently dangerous all over, we will issue a travel warning saying to the American public, do not go to country X. Of course, Nigeria is not in that situation. So what we have to do as a government is just alert our travelers to what parts of a country they might encounter problems in. And also you have to remember, our travel advisories are mostly written to the traveling public which may not be very experienced. Because there are certain experienced travelers who will go anywhere and they'll be fine. But then there are certain travelers, for example, right now I'm working at a university and I have students who've never been outside of the country before. So those are really the people that those advisories are written for.
Was this going to affect the relationship between Nigeria and the U.S. in any way?
No, it shouldn't affect it at all because the Nigerian government understands perfectly well our responsibility to inform our travelers. So, on the one hand, you can have the tourism bureau. On the other hand, you have the people that tell the travelers of what problems they may face. As you probably well know, there are a number of countries that write travel advisories about the United States. I'm not delighted about them, but I have to admit that there are parts of the United States where someone getting off the plane from Sweden for the first time might face some difficulties.
In the face of global threats, do you think Nigerian government should be doing more? What exactly should we be doing to combat this?
Well, here's the bottom line. Every government has to do the utmost it can to provide for the safety and security of its citizens throughout the borders, within all of the borders. Then you get into the real issues, number one, of resources, number two, of capabilities, number three, the intention is certainly there. From my analysis, we are very, very fortunate to have a government in place that would like to do everything it possibly can. But it's going to take a while to get there. And it's not just the Nigerian government. Look at any government in the world. Look where we've had the really, really recent problems recently. Nice, France. For example, I had 15 students from my university 2 blocks from where the truck attack happened. Who would have thought that in Nice, France, something like that might happen? I mean, the fact of life is the world right now is probably more dangerous than it ever has been before. Not to the extent of nuclear extermination. We're not facing the same threat we did, until the end of the Soviet Union, that somebody was going to destroy somebody else and then the whole world would end up going up. But right now what we have is a situation where something awful can happen anywhere in the world at any time. I tell my students that they're taking just as much of a risk traveling the Washington, D.C. subway system, unfortunately, as they are just about going anywhere else. So it's a world we have to deal with. It is impossible for any government on this planet to assure the 100% safety and security of its citizens because of the nature of the threat. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. We can all do the best we can. We can work with each other. We can cooperate with each other. But at the end of the day, this current danger is going to have to pass. And unfortunately, I'm not optimistic that it will pass anytime quickly.
Okay, you say it will take time. And of course, this is something that's affecting hundreds of lives right here in Nigeria. I mean, people are losing their jobs, losing lives, losing property as well. So, but how is the U.S. really helping to combat this, apart from donation of armored vehicles, equipments, and what we hear or see in the news from time to time?
Let me put it this way. As I said, I think the most important step to begin with is the willingness and the intention of any government to honestly and totally face this threat, which the Nigerian government is absolutely doing. Beyond that, you have partnerships with a whole range of nations. And I know we work very closely with the Nigerian government through a lot of different channels, through a lot of different levels, through all types of cooperation to assist each other, because this is not just the United States assisting Nigeria. This is a true sense of cooperation, because it's the Nigerian government also assisting us. Just because we sit behind 2 oceans doesn't mean that we're going to be safe. Remember, there was a attempted airplane bombing not too long ago that emanated from this country. It can emanate from any country. So we have to work together through every channel possible, whether it's military, whether it's other security, whether it's economic, whether it's cash, whether it's cyber. And then at the end of the day, as the security situation starts improving, then what about those poor people that were victimized and now they're left with nothing, they're hungry, they can't yet go back to their homes. So we also have to think about them.